Decimal equations. To solve a one-step equation with decimals, you want to do the inverse operation. And remember, when we're talking about inverse operations, whatever's been done to the variable, you want to do the opposite operation. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. You don't want to forget your decimal rules. And as we solve these problems, we will review those. So let's take a look at number 1. I have a plus 4 5/10 equals 9 7/10. Okay, again, just like the equations that we did before, we are going to put a line through the equal sign. And we're going to look at the side where the variable is. As you can see, I'm adding to the variable. I'm adding 4 5/10. So I want to do the inverse operation. So instead of adding 4 5/10, I'm going to subtract 4 5/10. And again, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you got to do on the other side of the equation. Okay? 4 5/10 minus 4 5/10 is going to cancel. This is 0, and then I'm going to be left with the variable. So since I am subtracting decimals, I want to line them up. So when we are subtracting or adding decimals, I'm lining up the decimals. Lining up the decimals, and I'm lining up the place values. Okay? And then I'm just going to subtract. So, and then don't forget to place my decimal in the answer, straight down. So 7 minus 5 would give me 2, and 9 minus 4 would give me 5. So my solution is A equals 5 2/10. I can also check this by, again, I take my solution and I can take and substitute where my variable is. So if I do 5 2/10 plus 4 5/10, that's going to equal 9 7/10. Again, line up my decimals. And again, that's going to check. That's a 7. 9 7/10. And that is going to work. So that's checked, okay? The number 2. Number 2 is B minus 14 4/10 equals 18 39 Okay, so again, I'm going to put my line through the equal sign. Look at the side where the variable is. I'm subtracting from the variable, so I want to do the opposite. So the opposite of subtracting is adding. So I'm going to add 14 4/10 on both sides of the equation. Okay, I'm left with the variable on one side. To add decimals, I want to line up my decimal places. Okay, and don't forget, if you have an empty space, you want to put a 0 as a placeholder. Now I can add. I have everything lined up. Put your decimal straight down in the answer, and then add. Okay, so B equals 32 79 I can check this by replacing the solution to the variable. So I want to plug back in. I'm going to squeeze this in here. 39 79 minus 14 4/10. And I want to see if that's going to equal 18 39. So again, line up my decimal place. I'm going to check my answers. Put your placeholder in there and then subtract. So as you can see, I should be able to get 18 39. So it checks. Okay? So I substituted my answer into for the variable. I subtract. I should get 18 39. It checks. Okay? All right. So number 3. Okay. Again, this is 9/10 times C equals 5 4/10. I'm going to put a line through my equation, my equal sign. So I noticed that the side where it says the variable, I notice I'm multiplying. I'm multiplying by the variable. So the opposite or the inverse operation of multiplication is dividing. So I would divide 9/10 on both sides. That means division, okay? So with dividing decimals, remember that the top number, or your dividend, is going to go into your box. And your bottom number is going to be your divisor, which is outside your box. Now with decimal equations, if you have a decimal in your divisor, you want to move it until you get a whole number. Since I moved this one time, I'm going to move it one time in my dividend. Put your answer, your decimal straight up in your quotient, and then divide. So 9 into 54 will give me 6. So C equals 6. Okay? So again, I can check this by putting the solution back into my original equation for C. So as you can see, I've got 9, and I can multiply that by 6, and I should get 5 4/10. Well, 9 times 6 is 54. Well, how many decimal places did I have in my my numbers? Would be 1 decimal place. So that I would have to move it 1 time. And it checks. Okay? The next one is number 4. So D divided by 7 2/10 equals 12 5/10. Again, what is being done to the variable is dividing. So the opposite of dividing, or the inverse of dividing, would be to multiply. So I'm going to be multiplying, instead of dividing by 7 2/10, I'm going to be multiplying by 7 2/10 on both sides of the equation. Okay? Don't forget my line down the middle to show that both sides are equal. I'm going to be left with my variable on one side. So again, the rule for multiplying, you do not have to worry about lining your decimals up. Okay, so you just multiply by normal. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 1 times 2. Put a 0 when you're multiplying by the next place value. 5 times 7 is 35, carry the 3. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 plus 3 is 17. And you should get, adding all those up. Okay, I got this 9,000, but it's not 9,000, and I gotta go back to my factors and count how many decimal places I have. 2, so I gotta move it twice. 1, 2. So my my answer is 90. Okay. Okay, so again, I can check that by plugging in 90 into my original equation. Okay, so D is 90, so I'm going to put D in 4 and divide that by 7 2/10, and I should get 12 1/2. Okay, so again, top number is the dividend, 7.2. I'm going to move my decimal over once, and then I'm going to divide. Well, 72 into 90 will give me 1, and I should get 12 1/2 by the time I check this. Bring down your 8. Okay, 72 and 80. That would be 180. Would be 2. 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times is 14. And I'm going to have 736. And I got to add another 0. And then 72 and 360 is going to be 5. Let's squeeze that in there. 5 times 2 is 0. 10. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36. Okay? So it does check. Okay? So those are 4 problems I did with you in these notes. I did an addition problem, a subtracting, a multiplication, and dividing. Okay, so what I want you to do on your own and try is the 2 bottom questions here. Okay. All right. So number 5 and number 6. So number 5, I'm dividing. So the opposite of division would be multiplying. Okay. And then 6, since I'm adding, the opposite or the inverse would be subtracting. So try those two on your own, and we will be working more with one-step decimal equations in class.